Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors, episode 334. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Saturn, we have housekeeping.
We do?
And it's that I... yeah. Here, let me save the Word document. It is that I'm still sick, because we recorded the other episode an hour ago, and I was sick then, and I'm still sick an hour later.
It's amazing.
So just so people know... I didn't get over in the last hour. I tried really hard. I tried to force all of the snot out of my head, and it will not leave. It lives here now. It's a part of me. My week, I picked up the Pokemon Pearl, the new one. What is it? It's Shining Diamond and Pearly Pearl. I don't remember what Pearl is called.
Pearly.
My wife and I are playing them in not very far yet. We're a couple gym badges in, and just, man, what a fun game. I liked that DS era of Pokemon games a lot. I played the crap out of Platinum when it came out. I thought that one was really good. I don't feel like Pokemon has been as good as it was with like Black and White 2. Those were really kind of my favorites when they gave up trying to have different things for them, and they were just like, do colors again, but put 2.
Yeah. Looks like it's Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl.
Oh, well, that's weird. I would have said the diamond is shining rather than... Do pearls really shine very much? It seems like more of a diamond.
If you polish them, I guess they could.
But yeah, I mean, compared to a diamond, though,
well,
I don't...
I guess. Well, what they're saying is that the diamond is brilliant and the pearl is really dumb, but they polished it up.
Dumb idiot Pearl. And so it's been a good time. I've been enjoying it. I like I said, I really like that era of Pokemon games. It kind of makes me want to try Sword and Shield, like just a little bit, but then I'm probably not going to. But what's weird to me is in the Discord, there have been multiple people that have been like, "Hey, are Diamond and Pearl good?" And I'm like, yeah, they're you're kind of your standard. This is kind of the later end of that standard Pokemon formula,
right?
Where it still really is just like that sort of formulaic JRPG. And I was playing it. They always remind me a lot of Dragon Quest games.
Yeah, well, they're heavily influenced by them, obviously.
Right. One is the influence. It's a JRPG, just like they are. But then it's the way the plot works is always go to a town, see what's going on in that town, solve that town's problems, and then shove off to the next town. It's that very episodic kind of design. And so I always respond with like, oh, it's the tail end of the formulaic era of Pokemon games. Yeah. And then people will be like, well, I've never played one, so is it a good one? And it always bewilders me. It's always so strange to hear people, they're like, yeah, I've never played any of them. Is this one good?
I've only played the one and also its remake.
Wait, okay, so 2. You've played 2 of them.
I played Yellow far enough to get to like the 3rd or 4th badge, and I started the remake of that one.
Well, Yellow, you mean Green and Red?
I think is the
yeah, Fire Red. Well, that's 2. I was saying people are saying they haven't played any, and you just named the 2. You've played 2, right? So yeah, it's I personally like Diamond and Pearl a lot. I like that era a lot. I like the Pokemon a lot in that era. It's a good one. I don't have to finish the game to know that I would recommend it for people that like kind of older school Pokemon. When I played like Sun and Moon were a little too much for me. I didn't like those. That was when I was like, I'm done with mainline Pokemon for now. I'm gonna wait and see until it does something that I find interesting before jumping back in.
Is that when it started getting a little more anime?
It definitely was a little more anime. But it was also like it broke from formula in a lot of big ways. And I like that theoretically because I've played a lot of Pokemon games and I know how they all go. But then it didn't do it in a way that I enjoyed more. It turned out it broke formula in a way that I ended up enjoying a lot less.
That's unfortunate.
And I can't give specific details on why, because it's been a while since I played it. But I remember I played Black and White 2, and I was like, these are fantastic Pokemon games. Black and White 2 were great. It's the only Pokemon game where like I really genuinely cared about the storyline, the characters involved. I was really invested in that game. It was really good. And it genuinely brought up interesting philosophical discussions about Pokemon. Like one of the characters, like without spoiling much, one of the characters in the game is like, hey, aren't Pokemon basically slaves?
Yeah.
You know, like it explored facets of the game in ways that hadn't been done. It was really good. And then X and Y came out and they're like, oh, it's Pokemon again. And you're like, oh, okay, well, good. You know, but whatever. And then Sun and Moon was just too different. So I'm excited to do more Diamond and Pearl. Really, I hope we just get Black and White 2 remakes more than anything, I think, at this point.
There's still a few games away from that, though, aren't they?
We are, yes. So it was Diamond and Pearl Platinum, and then I think Black and White, and then I think it was Heart Gold, Soul Silver remakes.
All right.
Maybe. I'm not sure. And then Black and White, and then Black and White 2, and then X and Y. I think. It's been a while. Yeah. But yeah, Pokemon Pearl, it's a good game. What have you been doing?
I got a new phone.
Oh, I see.
I didn't intend on getting a new phone.
To play all those new Angry Birds on.
Exactly. I've been playing all the Angry Birds.
Perfect.
No, I had, because last year I'd gotten a Pixel 5, and I intended on keeping it until at least when the Pixel 7 or 8 came out.
Yeah.
And my employer gives me a work phone, so I've got a work phone as well. And the carrier for my work phone messaged me and was like, hey, we have a promotion going on through your employer for employees of that company where you can get, I think it was $30 or $40 off of a plan if you switch to us. And I was like, that still sounds pretty expensive because I know what you guys charge.
Yeah.
And I'm looking and it's still more expensive than what I was paying. But I was looking at it, and then they had the Pixel 6 Pro, the massive, very powerful one.
Right.
And it's a $900 phone. It's expensive. And they're like, well, if you trade in a Pixel 5, you get $800 off. And
what?
$800 is more than the Pixel 5 cost.
Right.
So I was like, I kind of have to do that. So
yeah, you're dumb if you don't.
Right. So now I have a Pixel 6 Pro, and so I've been playing around with that, and it's a nice phone, and then I get the first statement from this new carrier, and they're like, well, since you switched to us, we're going to give you 6 months of Stadia Pro.
Oh, wonderful.
And I was like, oh boy, Stadia. So I figure, well, it's 6 months free. Fuck it. I'll activate it, and we'll see what games have been added to Pro. And it's a whole bunch of indie games, just a ton of indie games, and Ys 8, which I already have on at least 3 other consoles. And
right.
And then I happen to notice that the new golf game is on there, whatever 2K Sports golf game series is.
Oh yeah.
And I enjoyed Links on the Xbox. I was like, I'm going to see if I can enjoy this, because people had been talking about it in the chat. A few people had bought the Switch version of this game. And I was like, I'll try it out on Stadia, see how it is. And I'm enjoying it. It's fun. And then I was like, I don't want to enjoy this too much because I'm sure as shit not paying for it on Stadia.
Right.
I'm not going to buy this on Stadia.
Right. You're not going to buy a sports game on Stadia.
None of that's going to happen.
That's the most anti-Saturn sentence I've ever heard.
So I was like, well, I don't want to get super into it.
It's right up there with buy a loot box in an FPS game.
Right. And so I was looking at other games on there. So I was playing some Saints Row 4 on Stadia and just some other random stuff. And I also got a phone clip for my phone, the one that you recommended, actually, that Power A one.
Yeah.
Which works excellent because it actually has a little notch so that it doesn't press the volume button while it's clicked on your phone. And man, that's nice.
Makes it functional.
Oh yeah, it's so nice. And so I was playing with emulators on there and all that. And then I happened to power up my PS4 the other day. I don't remember why I powered up my PS4. I think I was checking for some update for something. And when I powered it up, I looked at what games were on PlayStation Plus because it was saying, hey, you didn't redeem your PlayStation Plus games for this month. And I look at it and it's some garbage that I don't want. And then I close that and it shows me the last games I did redeem on PlayStation Plus. And it's that same fucking golf game. It's the 2021 edition of it. And I was like, oh, well, if I already have it on PlayStation, I'll just play it on here instead. This is way better than Stadia. Thanks, Stadia.
Right.
So I did play a little bit of that. And it's fun for, golf. It's golf.
Yeah.
It's the golf games.
All of that for It's Golf. Do you do the same thing I do where you get a new phone, you install all your emulators, and you're like, why do I fucking do anything else? I can just connect a controller, do all my emulators on my phone. They're always in my pocket, and then you never play it.
No, I did not have that mind space at all. I installed RetroArch on it, and I was like, well, now I can use RetroArch in case I'm horribly bored and only have my phone somewhere.
There you go.
But no, I do not. I never want to do anything mobile or handheld or portable ever. If I have the option to not do handheld, I will not do handheld. But I did test out a few games because I have the Dragon Quest games on mobile, and I still don't play them, and I love Dragon Quest. But I had started a game of Dragon Quest IV like 2 or 3 phones ago, and uploaded it to cloud storage. And when I was transferring everything from my Pixel 5 to this phone, I wanted to make sure that was uploaded to cloud storage, and it kept failing out when I would try to upload to cloud storage.
Huh.
And I was like, what the fuck? And then I loaded up on my new phone, and I was like, well, let's see if it can load from cloud storage. And it kept failing trying to download from cloud storage. And I was like, oh shit. And so then I just tried to open a save file on the new phone, and it's already transferred over from my fucking transfer cable anyway. So it was already there. It was fine. But then I go to my Google Drive where it does all the cloud storage, and now there's 248 Dragon Quest IV backup folders in my Google Drive.
Oh, is that all? Is that not how many you normally have?
Yeah. So that was weird. I don't know what happened or how it fucked itself, but it seems fine now. I deleted all of those folders, and now it's okay.
Well, there you go. Let's do some news.
Yeah.
First up, Bandai Namco announces Pac-Man Museum Plus, a collection of 14 Pac-Man games, not including which ones, Saturn?
Pac-Man 2 wasn't on there.
Was
but Miss Pac-Man was not on there. I think
Pardon
that was
Miss Pac-Man.
I think Miss Pac-Man was supposed to be DLC, maybe.
Yeah.
But no, it did look like it was all the generally re-released arcade Pac-Man games.
Pac-Man Jr.?
No Junior Pac-Man, no Baby Pac-Man.
What the fuck is the point, then? Okay.
But you have
if I want to play regular Pac-Man, I'll play it on my Neo Geo Pocket Color. I already have it.
But you have like Pac-Land, and you have Pac-Attack, and Pac-in-Time, and Pac-Man Arrangement, and stuff like that is all on there.
I was just hoping you would keep going and start making some up.
See if you would guess which ones were fake.
Kojima Productions is launching a film, TV, and music division. All three, for some reason.
I also heard that they are releasing a life-size recreation of the baby backpack from Death Stranding.
Of course they are.
And I saw that it
why
was
wouldn't they?
Its pre-order was a Black Friday deal. That's the only reason why I heard of it.
How much is it?
I don't know. It was way too much. I just
It's gotta be like $2,000.
There was
or
some
something.
enormous price tag, and I was like, no, I don't care about that.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad Kojima's out there doing his Kojima thing.
Right.
And we've said it before. We'll continue saying it. We're glad he's here.
I saw some news article the other day. It was like the new game trivia found, and they were talking about Silent Hill 1, and they were showing all the allusions to famous authors. And the author of this article was like, and clearly when you're looking at all these very in-depth allusions, this was Kojima's doing. I'm like, motherfucker, Kojima didn't work on Silent Hill.
You don't understand, Saturn. It's all a long con. He was never fired from Konami. He's actually secretly been making every Silent Hill game, and someone else has been making Metal Gear this whole time.
Yeah, the long con was actually Kojima made every game Konami ever made.
You know what? If it came out that he secretly made like all of the Silent, I wouldn't even be shocked. I'd be like, yeah, that sounds like a fucking Kojima thing that he would do. Maybe that's why this stuff keeps perpetuating. Because would you really be shocked, or would you be like, all right, well, fucking of course he did, I guess.
I'd be a little shocked just because of all of the existing interviews with all the people who did work on those games.
Hired actors.
Yeah. Kojima has pull. I don't know if he has that much pull.
Hired actors. Activision Blizzard continues to look worse somehow. I don't even know how you look worse. All three console makers have spoken out against their handling of their recent allegations.
Yeah.
It's Activision Blizzard is just so bad now.
Despite Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo all coming out and saying that they are troubled by the look over there, the board of directors at Activision is like, no, everything's good. This is how we wanted it to go.
And all the shit coming out from Bobby Kotick is just, whoa, just disgusting. Real disgusting stuff
just
coming
gross
out
on top of gross
from that guy. Just all around.
Ugh.
Fuck off, Activision Blizzard.
Seriously.
Just take your shit and go home.
Right.
Quit, please. Or I don't know, take any meaningful step toward fixing any of the problems.
And
don't
really, above all else, stop making EA look like a better company.
Yeah, I almost bought an EA game the other day because I was like, because before I buy a game, I always check. I'm like, who's the publisher?
Yeah.
Because there's certain publishers I just don't like to support them. You know, and
It's your money.
I check
You're
and
allowed to do that.
And I look and I go, oh, it's EA, and I was like, yeah, I'll give EA money. And then I was like, wait a minute, why will I give EA money? They're terrible. And then I was like, did EA get better? And I was like, no, I think everyone else just got way worse.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
So, it's I don't know.
Yeah.
Modders fit a Raspberry Pi in a GBA cartridge and get PS1 games running on the device.
Yeah, I didn't look into the very specifics of how they managed to do it, but I did look at the video, and it's crazy.
I don't know why you would want this,
right?
But now you can have
and
it.
I think maybe they put the Pi inside of the Game Boy itself, and are just using the Game Boy shell. It has to be that.
Well, but that's been done a dozen times. People have been putting Pis in GBA shells for years.
Right.
That wouldn't even be newsworthy.
Yeah, but it just seems so difficult to believe that they've got it running all within a GBA cartridge. I mean, maybe they do, but yeah, it's bizarre.
I don't know. Polymega announces an N64 module with, and we checked, the world's ugliest N64 controller, which is saying a lot because have you seen the N64 controller?
Oh man, it looks so bad.
Yeah, I mean, good on them for expanding on their product, and they seem to be getting plenty of excitement in the games press. So, more power to them there.
Right.
We've said it before. I'm glad their product exists and that people want it and that they're getting it. It's not
for me. Though.
Yeah, not for me either. Harmonix bought by Epic. Thanks, Epic.
Yeah,
you fucks.
Right,
you big old fucks.
Yeah, I'm pretty bummed out by that because Harmonix.
Now, what has Harmonix even been doing in the last few years?
They've been making really back end systems for other people's games more than anything.
Okay.
Dance Central was their last big one that did really well. But of course, looking back historically, things like Frequency and Amplitude and Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and I mean they've got decades worth of, and they're still releasing DLC for Rock Band 4 regularly. They continue to update that.
Man.
So it is a shame because Epic has shown that they are not afraid to delist the products of companies that they buy from other marketplaces, because they just recently delisted Hateful Boyfriend on Steam and GOG.
Yeah. Well, hold on a minute. This is Epic, the company that just sued Apple because they want more freedom in the marketplace.
Right.
Doesn't it seem a tad duplicitous that they would then aggressively delist software from non-Epic marketplaces?
Yeah, that is weird how they would keep doing that, and also sign third-party companies to massive contracts for exclusivity.
Maybe they haven't noticed that they're bastards.
No, they noticed. They just don't care.
For me, like the only saving grace for Epic still is that some of the deals they give to these indie publishers to have Epic exclusive smaller games are very beneficial to those indie companies, but that goodwill does not mean that you can do all this other shit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It did make me feel a little gross playing the Alan Wake remaster a few weeks ago, just because it was published by Epic, so it had that Epic logo at the title screen every time. I was like, man, just fuck off, Epic.
I'd forgive 50% of Epic's transgressions if they would just release another Unreal Tournament, for God's sakes.
They almost did. Whatever that was anyway.
Yeah, it was that weird beta thing. NN Games announces the Western release of Taito Milestones Collection on Switch, which does not include which games, Saturn?
There's no Bubble Bobble. There's no Rainbow Islands. There's no New Zealand Story. There's no Super Kicks. I'm so upset by this.
So is it just Space Invaders? What's even on it?
I don't even think Space Invaders was on there.
What the fuck?
You do have the original kick. It does have a lot of games. You got stuff like Elevator Action and shit. Now I can't even think of any of them. I'm so upset about the ones that aren't there. But no, it does have like 15 or 20 games. It's a bunch of old classic Taito arcade games from the 80s, just not the ones that I want.
Right. I think they just want to hurt you.
They do.
That's decided.
That's been Taito's goal for many years now. Jerks.
Analog Pocket allegedly shipping to consumers on December 14th.
It's good.
This thing has been, it was announced in the heat of a global pandemic and has been delayed, I think, multiple times at this point.
I believe a few times at least.
And I don't believe there have been any indications of another pre-order or ordering window whatsoever.
None yet, anyway.
Which does not give me a lot of hope for the Analog Duo.
Yeah.
That I think we all keep forgetting about because they announced that.
Right.
So yeah. I don't know. We said previously that Analog gets a lot of automatic trust in the retro gaming space for the products that they put out, as expensive and for some of them, I will say overpriced as they are.
Yeah, it's funny. The last episode we were talking about the luxury consoles of the early to mid 90s.
Yeah.
Analog is the luxury consoles of retro gaming.
And I'm not talking about $189 Super Nintendo. That's still high.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the $500 NES that they were selling for a while.
Wasn't their first model $1,000?
I want to say it was. They also used to do full wood grain MVS conversions were in that same price range. Right. And I get it. It's high in materials. It's high in workmanship. They have fantastic reviews. They deserve the reputation they have.
Absolutely.
But all of this kerfuffle with the Pocket and then no even mentioning of more pre-orders and then the Duo still kind of being in limbo is concerning.
It is.
Anyway. Let's get to the topic at hand. This week we're talking Yuzo Koshiro.
Yes.
Who is the composer of Streets of Rage and some other things. Other stuff.
Well, that's the show.
Yep, bye. We're just going to play the whole Streets of Rage 2 soundtrack now. Please enjoy it, and we'll see you next week. Yuzo Koshiro was born on December 12th, 1967 in Tokyo, Japan.
That's Frank Sinatra's birthday.
Is it?
That's also Bob Barker's birthday.
Strange that you know that.
I know that because it's also my birthday.
We do want to give a note on scope. I believe this is also the first composer we've ever done.
This is the first time we've done a composer.
So this is kind of new territory for us. It's a little weird to talk about a composer and not just be like listening to their music.
Right.
Also, Yuzo Koshiro is quite prolific.
Yeah.
He has put out just a whole lot of stuff.
Yes.
So it's impossible to really talk meaningfully about any of it.
Right.
So we're mostly just going to talk about the human being.
Yes.
Rather than details about specific tracks or albums or musical eras in his life.
Well, also, neither of us are music experts, which we've mentioned on the show before. So.
Oh, no, I became one last week.
Oh,
yeah, I'm a music expert
All
now.
right, good. Then I'm going to ask you for terminology a few times.
I got certified and everything. No, please don't.
Official musicologist Justin Baker.
So Saturn, let's start with early history and influences.
So he said that he was taught, first of all, he has done a lot of interviews. And he has a YouTube channel that he does in English where he does all kinds of Q&A sessions and stuff. So you can find a lot of information. So he said that he was taught how to play the piano by his mother, Tomo Koshiro, who is a pianist. And at age 7, he started taking music lessons from Joe Hisaishi. I think I said that right. Anyway. And that's the guy who composed the music for films like Kiki's Delivery Service and Porco Rosso and Princess Mononoke. So,
man.
Yeah, this is a guy with some music cred.
Yeah.
And that's who he was taking lessons from. And he took lessons from him for 3 years. And then he said any music knowledge that he has from age 10 up is entirely self-taught.
Oh, is that all?
Which fair, you know. I believe that he did in fact teach himself a ton from that point forward just by listening to other music. But you're starting with a hell of a foundation at that point.
I mean, holy cow, Princess Mononoke alone.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my god, I just dropped everything off my desk. I'm just so shocked.
Yeah, you're so amazed by the soundtrack to Princess Mononoke. You just gotta throw shit all over the fucking place.
I kind of am. Princess. Now we're off on a tangent, but Princess Mononoke was one of those that was like a course altering movie for me.
Oh yeah. That was
right. Like
that was the first anime movie that I saw in a theater, and also the first time that I ever sought out something knowing that it was in fact Japanese produced animation.
Yeah, Princess Mononoke, Akira, and Ghost in the Shell. Like those are the three big anime movies for me. Like course altering, you know, films for me. I probably watched Princess Mononoke so many freaking times. Oh, yeah. My God, I've watched that movie so many times.
I've got the Miyazaki Blu-ray box set.
Man, I wanted to get that for the longest time, and it has been bootlegged so badly that you cannot find the real deal.
Oh,
it is impossible to differentiate because it has been bootlegged all to hell.
Well, I keep hoping they'll do. When the DVDs first started coming out for all his movies, you could find bootlegs of it everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyway, tangent aside.
Yeah. So anyway, Yuzo Koshiro, he does the musics. So I did find a video on his YouTube channel where he mentioned that he spent his free time in high school resequencing soundtracks to his favorite arcade games on his home computer.
Mm-hmm.
And he said specifically his greatest references of that era as far as video games go were Tower of Druaga, Gradius, and Space Harrier. Mm-hmm. And those soundtracks specifically were what made him want to compose for video games rather than for anything else. And
those are good soundtracks.
Yeah, those are some really excellent soundtracks. So I can see where that comes from. He at age 18, after finishing his primary education, started applying at different game studios. He was hired at Nihon Falcom, who is mostly known for the Ys series and Dragon Slayer and Legend of Heroes. He sent in a demo tape to Falcom, and they ended up using the tracks from his demo tape in Xanadu Scenario 2.
Yeah.
And then they hired him and were like, and can we also use this stuff? Like, you have a job, but also, can we use this?
Did they get Olivia Newton-John back for Scenario 2, or was it just she just in Scenario 1?
Oh, no, they just reused her. It's just archive footage.
Right, stock footage. There you go. I can't even, like, already, like, I mean, right now we're talking Yuzo Koshiro at age 18, and already it's trained by a legendary composer, raised by a pianist, and at his very first job, they're like, we need to hire you. Also, literally the demo tape you sent us, we need to put this in a product and put it out the door.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And apparently, Xanadu Scenario 2, which was just an expansion pack to the original Xanadu,
right?
It was published within weeks or months of him starting at Falcom. Mm-hmm. Like, they already had the game mostly done. They just needed some music, and they're like, oh no, this is it. This is the music. This is what we're going to use.
Yeah. Could you imagine getting hired at a job and they're like, your job's already done because we're just going to use what you sent us. So
and we're gonna immediately start paying you because this is it. This is what you did.
It's got to go. Got to go out the door.
But yeah, while he was there at Falcom, he was immediately put to task working on the Dragon Slayer series, which is at the time their premier franchise. So he was writing music for the specific entries in Dragon Slayer, Romancia, Legacy of the Wizard, and Sorcerian. He composed some music for. He was also asked to write some of the music for their new action RPG series, Ys.
Oh, it's pronounced Wise?
I'm sorry, Wise. So, and also Falcom put out a CD soundtrack for the Ys games called Music from Ys. Mm-hmm. And they published it in 1987.
Wow.
Which, he was 20 years old at this point. His music is being sold in stores in Japan. Yeah. And it was one of the first commercially released video game soundtracks.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is not an era. I mean, I feel like we didn't get video game soundtracks really very available until like the mid to late 90s.
And in the US, we didn't even get them then. We would get like
True.
little samplers of the Japanese score as a pre-order bonus. That would be as close as we got.
Yeah.
But,
and especially like any video game soundtracks pre like stuff like Redbook Audio, like just
well, this was
wasn't a
on
thing.
CD in 87.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah. It's slight tangent. I happened to turn on the TV yesterday, and I've got my TV set to the old game show channel, and it was an episode of Classic Concentration, and they reveal a box, and the prize listed is 10 of your favorite compact discs. And host Alex Trebek says, "Oh, compact disc. This is going to be the wave of the future. Watch this one."
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
He wasn't wrong.
it's true. But yeah, it's just weird to hear it referred to that way.
Right.
Some compact discs, the wave of the future right there. Anyway. Several people have pointed out, rightfully so, the similarity between the item collect jingle used in the original Metroid and in the Ys series. And I have seen some people try to defend him and be like, well, if you go back and listen to NES Metroid, it doesn't sound anything like it. But if you listen to Famicom Disk System Metroid, it sounds exactly like it.
Yeah.
And in the liner notes for the CD soundtrack, Koshiro acknowledges it and says that he wrote the jingle because he liked the sound when he collected items in Metroid. It was really good.
Yeah, I stole this. He didn't steal it. Go back and listen to it. No, I stole it.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Shut up.
Right? And honestly, I started looking through. There's a lot of accusations of him just ripping off other things, and then when you listen to those things, he took some pretty heavy inspiration sometimes.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, in this era of video game composition as well, like it's, I don't want to say it's fully forgivable, but it's a little more understandable.
It was a little more fast and loose back then.
Yeah, I mean, video game composition in the late 80s did not follow the same kind of rules that general music composition did. It would a few years later.
Right.
But in 1987, 88, 89, like, no, they... I mean,
we've talked in the past about how Koji Kondo wanted to just straight up use somebody else's song as the title theme to Zelda. And then at the last minute, they found out it was still under copyright. So,
yeah,
you know, it was the rules were different.
8 and 16-bit games are riddled with just full-on rip-offs of music, very often of like full-on extremely popular like chart-topping tracks. I mean, have you played NES Ninja Turtles?
Right.
You know, and it's
also,
just stone cold crazy.
It is. When I was looking through this, somebody had pointed out the ending theme, the credits theme from ActRaiser that he composed. It's basically the 20th Century Fox jingle, and I was like, no, it's not. And then I loaded up, and it definitely is.
Of all the jingles to rip off. Oh, man.
So, yeah. And also, just the title theme of the first Ys. It's pretty much the title screen from the first Metroid or Zero Mission.
Yeah.
If you go back and listen to it, it's pretty close to the same song. So he did leave Falcom after 2 years with the company. Dude composed all these prolific games at Falcom within 2 years. And then it was just like, all right, I'm done here. Bye.
Bye. See you later.
And Falcom is a company that historically does not like to credit anyone, but especially composers. Any music within Falcom is always composed by Falcom Sound Team. To this day, they still try to pull that shit, even though everybody knows who works there. But even then, he was credited specifically in the liner notes. So
it makes me wonder if that was a stipulation of his contract with him or something.
I have always kind of wondered that. And I wonder
because if you're getting hired on and they're like, you are so good, we need your music now, that kind of gives you the leverage to be like, all right, but I want accreditation.
Right. And I wonder if maybe that is part of why he left Falcom so soon, is maybe they wanted to renegotiate and get rid of that.
Right.
So obviously that's all speculatory. I don't know any of this for sure, but
right.
But he did find work immediately. He went freelance after Falcom, and he was immediately finding work. Namco, NX, Sega all started getting him to do work. Namco tasked him with composing the MSX ports of some of their games, including Return of Ishtar, which was the sequel to Tower of Duraga, And in the interview I saw where he was mentioning that, he was even 30 years later, he was so excited that he got to work on the sequel to Tower of Druaga because that was one of the games that inspired him.
I feel like we talked about Druaga on it was the one of the Namco collections. That we talked about it on. But man, what a really, really extremely influential game.
Oh yeah,
that I feel these days does not quite get the credit it deserves,
especially in the West. Like in Japan, I think people still recognize it as one of those pillar influential games of the 80s, but in the West I think a lot of us didn't see it that much because it didn't get too many home ports over here outside of the microcomputers.
I kind of suspect there are a lot of action RPG and RPG games that we wouldn't have seen if not for Druaga.
Oh yeah,
it was
absolutely.
so influential.
I mean, we know definitively that things like Dragon Slayer and Zelda were both influenced by it directly. So
absolutely,
and in turn, those two inspired pretty much everything else.
You can, and I don't know if we mentioned on that episode. It's been like 100 episodes now.
At least.
But I feel like you can really see Druaga in Zelda.
Oh yeah,
like a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
so yeah, as far as working at NX, he was brought on to mostly compose for some of their PC games. This was during the era when NX was still releasing some soft eroge on PC in Japan.
I see. Soft eroge.
Yeah. So
wonderful.
So he was initially brought on for some of that. And then after that was successful, they were like, oh, do you want to do this ActRaiser game?
Yeah.
So he did come back to do ActRaiser. And he said in the thing he was in the video, he was saying that he was unhappy with the system memory that the console made available to the sound chip. So he worked with the programming team at Quintet to develop their own sound system for the game that basically abused the Super NES hardware to force it to use other RAM that's supposed to be for the game or the video to load sound samples.
Yeah.
So it's really things that Nintendo didn't know the Super NES could handle at the time, but later became common practice in a lot of games on the console by the time the console died.
ActRaiser is one of Yuzo Koshiro's soundtracks that I went back and listened to on Spotify this week to prep for the show. And just a great soundtrack.
Oh,
I mean, so good.
And for being a launch title on the Super NES, it sounds phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sounds better than late era SNES games out of the gate.
Right? That was one of the first games that I'd played on the Super NES. And I think I mentioned it on the ActRaiser episode where when I heard the soundtrack, I was like, oh, the Super Nintendo can make real music. It's not just beeps and boops.
Yeah. Not just beeps and boops.
And then, of course, he did do work with Sega. So he had first done Revenge of Shinobi. And Sega's management appreciated that so much that they brought him back for Streets of Rage, eventually the entire series of Streets of Rage. And also the GG Shinobi, which was the first Game Gear Shinobi game, which had the dumbest name. I have to acknowledge how stupid that name is.
Yeah.
But it did introduce him to the Game Gear, which he immediately decided he was a big fan of the sound system in the Game Gear and Master System.
Yeah.
And that...
Revenge of Shinobi was another one I listened to, and I shared it in the Discord. I don't remember what track it was. But there is some track that had like a random cowbell thrown in there. In the middle of it for some reason. And it was like 3 quick cowbell strikes. So it was Revenge of Shinobi, and it's its usual Revenge of Shinobi stuff. And in the middle it'd be like ding ding ding. And I was trying. I was working at the time, and I was listening to Streets of Rage and Revenge of Shinobi, and I'm just working, and I keep like stopping working and laughing at this fucking cowbell in Revenge of Shinobi. But man, the Streets of Rage 2 soundtrack is so beloved and so celebrated. It cannot be understated how good of a soundtrack that is. I mean, just fantastic.
Absolutely.
Anyway, where were we?
Oh, so because of his love of the Game Gear, that kind of led to the next chapter in his life, because he founded a company called Ancient Corporation. and this was the weirdest foundation of a company, at least origin story. So he's working on this music at Sega, and he learns that management wants this upcoming game, Sonic the Hedgehog. They're making it for the Mega Drive, but management wants an 8-bit version.
Yes,
but the team working on the game is too busy to make an 8-bit version. They are working on the Mega Drive game. They can't spare anyone. They can't do this, and so Koshiro, who had kind of dabbled in programming throughout the years, was like, "Can I try?" and they're like, "Well, I mean, no, we don't. Yeah. We don't do contractors for programming. We'll do contractors for music, but not for programming." And he was like, "Well, you guys contract out programming." And they said, "Yeah, to companies, not to people."
Yeah.
And so he made a company,
not to a dude that's never done it before.
Right. So he makes a company because he had already kind of convinced some of the team. They're like, "I guess you can try, but we don't do this. We don't do it this way." So he made a company so that they would,
hire his company. Yeah.
And so he founded this company, Ancient Corporation. But to meet the legal definitions of a Japanese corporation, he needed employees. So his co-founder was his mother, and he hired his sister.
Right.
And his mother was the pianist. We discussed that.
Right.
But his sister had contributed character design to Ys and Streets of Rage. She had been doing the art for these games.
It's like his whole family is just like built to make kick-ass video games.
Right. It's like they'd been gunning down this path, and they were finally like, "Shit, we should make something real out of this.
I guess we're a corporation now."
Right. So yeah, they make Ancient Corporation. They did do the soundtrack. So Ancient is credited as soundtrack for a lot of games, including most of the Streets of Rage series, as well as Enix's Robotrek. But they also made games. They made their own independent games because he did eventually start hiring additional staff to work as designers and programmers and all that stuff. And some of their biggest games were Beyond Oasis, which outside of America is known as Story of Thor, and its sequel, Legend of Oasis, which is Story of Thor 2 in Europe.
Were those Game Gear games?
Those are Genesis and Saturn games, respectively.
Weird. Okay.
And
they are something else.
They are action RPGs. They kind of feel like something in between Secret of Mana and I don't want to say Zelda, maybe Secret of Mana and Illusion of Gaia, like somewhere in between those. As far as action RPG goes, they're both really solid games. I definitely recommend checking them out if you haven't. They have stellar soundtracks. Unsurprisingly, actually, Koshiro did not make the soundtracks to either of those games. He just supervised the soundtrack creation. But they're still excellent games, worth checking out.
Yeah,
he was the executive producer on both of them.
Those 8-bit Sonic games are very interesting.
Now, he only did the first one. So he and his team at Ancient created the first one, and then the music composer for 16-bit Sonic gave them the soundtrack for 16-bit Sonic, and they're like, "This is the soundtrack to Sonic. This is how it is." And he rearranged a couple of those songs so that they would work on the 8-bit. But then they had made such different levels because they had no idea what the 16-bit Sonic team was doing aside from the basic mechanics of the game.
Yeah.
And so they had done a couple of the levels, but then they didn't know what any of the other levels were. So they were just like, "Let's make up some levels." Yeah. And they just made up their own original stuff. And he was like, "Well, this music doesn't fit that." So he composed his whole original soundtrack beyond that for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
But all the other 8-bit Sonics were just a completely different company.
Yeah.
But he did say that they put in extra effort because they knew that the Game Gear had a smaller screen resolution than the Master System, but they didn't want Master System players to just get the Game Gear game with,
gargantuan on the screen.
Right. So they actually adjusted the map design on several of the stages to make sure that things were squished in for the Game Gear and not on the Master System. So it is slightly different games, just so that they would get slightly different experiences that were optimized for the two different systems.
Right. Well, let's talk years since Ancient Corporation.
Yeah. So he says that he still prefers to do his compositions on an NEC PC 8801, the same model machine he had in high school that he composed Xanadu 2 and Ys on. He says that he used that same NEC PC8801 when composing the Streets of Rage soundtracks, as well as at least the first Etrian Odyssey. He said Etrian Odyssey, I assume he means the first one. He might have meant most of the series for all I know.
I do want to talk about Etrian Odyssey because I feel like Yuzo Koshiro is kind of, in the broad gaming sense, known as like the Sega guy.
Yeah.
You know, that one real famous Sega composer.
Right.
Even though, as far as I can tell, he never worked at Sega.
No, not directly.
But he's done all of the Etrian Odyssey games.
Yes.
I mean, all of the mainline ones. He did both of the Untolds. He did Mystery Dungeon with another person, Mystery Dungeon 2, like all of them up to the newest one, which was Nexus in 2018.
Yeah.
And those are, I mean, just phenomenal soundtracks.
Yeah.
Especially Etrian Odyssey Untold, the first Untold, Millennium Girl, just an amazing soundtrack. All of the Etrian games have really, really good, very diverse soundtracks, which I like a lot. You know, a lot of times you listen to a game soundtrack and it's very much in line with the themes of that game, right? You know, so they can be, I don't want to say one note, but you know, maybe not super diverse. But all of the Etrian Odyssey soundtracks, if you don't play the games, which you should at least go listen to the soundtracks. They're all on Spotify and they're just fantastic. Also, in 2008, he composed the arrangement in Super Smash Bros. Brawl for Norfair.
Yes.
So he got to make an actual Metroid track.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's... After ripping off their music for so many years, he now gets to contribute to it. No, he's done a ton of arrangements on the Smash Brothers series since Brawl.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brawl he did Norfair, and he also did one of the Zelda arrangements. I want to say it was the
main theme arrangement.
Okay, main theme arrangement. But yeah, since then he's done a bunch of other Smash Brothers arrangements on all of the Smash games since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's done a ton in the years since then. He does seem to be far less likely to be sole composer these days.
And he also, for people that have forgotten, composed the Sega Genesis Mini menu theme, which is great.
Oh yeah, it's phenomenal.
He's done the Seventh Dragon games. I know he did with others, but he worked on Half Minute Hero.
Yep, Half Minute Hero, Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. He contributed to. Castlevania Portrait of Ruin he contributed to.
Yep, he did the Shenmues, worked on both Shenmue games.
Yep.
I
the
guess
first two anyway.
There's more than two now.
Yeah. And also his company, Ancient, keeps making new games. I mean, they don't tend to get localized. Some of them do. But they are still pumping out games. The most recent one I saw was 2019, so it's been a couple of years, but it's a team of 15 people. And so I get why they're not pumping them out left and right, but it is they are still around, and it's nice to see that. But yeah, he's still definitely pumping stuff out. And of course, ActRaiser Renaissance, which we just talked about not long ago.
Ancient apparently did Fusion Frenzy 2.
That's true, yeah.
which is weird.
Well, he had a history of working with Hudson too, because he had also done some of the tracks on Super Adventure Island way back on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. It's just it's nice to see. Like, to me, at this point, I didn't realize he was the Etrian Odyssey composer. I had no idea. And whenever I found that out, I was like, well, fuck all the Sega stuff. He's the Etrian Odyssey composer. I care more about that than his Sega work.
Right.
Like, that's more impactful for me. Yeah. And oddly enough, I know he did ActRaiser Renaissance, which we talked about on that episode. Yeah. But also composed for that, like, ActRaiser. I don't want to call it the knockoff, that
Soul Seraph.
The Soul Seraph that came out. He didn't do the whole. He just did. Was it the main theme for it?
But it's still neat that Sega brought him back for that, just because the game was basically a love letter to ActRaiser, and they were like, "Oh shit, we should get Koshiro in here for that."
Right, for sure. Anyway, I just wanted to gush about Etrian Odyssey for a few minutes.
That's fair.
While I could.
But yeah, he's done a ton of stuff. He continues to do it today. He's still pumping out at least contributions to soundtracks, if not entire soundtracks anymore. He also did a bunch of the arrangements for the Secret of Mana remake, which the game itself was not particularly well received, but the soundtrack was excellent on it.
Mhm.
So if you haven't heard some of those tracks, you probably should.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's still working.
Yeah, that's good. Let's talk. We've already kind of covered a lot of selected works. Is there
Yeah.
anything big we want to bring up that we haven't yet? I think we've kind
I
of.
think we've hit most. One that I'll mention that I absolutely love the soundtrack for is Legacy of the Wizard, which
Mhm.
if you haven't played that, it's an NES game, kind of a early proto search action game.
Yeah.
And it just has a stellar soundtrack, and you can play as a dog, which I will
Makes
give,
every game better,
give
right?
bonus points to any game that lets you play as a dog. And the dog can't take damage because monsters don't hurt dogs, just like in real
Obviously.
life.
Just like he did, he did the PS1 version of Zork,
Oh yeah, I did read that.
composed for that. He's so prolific and so diverse that it's genuinely hard to discuss his career
Right.
broadly because he's just done everything everywhere for every company.
Yeah, he's been all over the board as far as who he'll work for.
And like we mentioned in the beginning of the show, stylistically, he's been everywhere too.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at something like Etrian Odyssey compared to something like ActRaiser compared to something like Streets of Rage, any of them.
Oh yeah.
And they're just so very different. He's done Japanese games. He's done Western games. I mean, he did the Sega CD Eye of the Beholder.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Just crazy stuff.
Right.
And apparently also Batman Returns. And
yeah, Konami put that out. So it was at least developed by a Japanese company.
I also discovered that there's a game called Slap Fight, which is not a game of people slapping the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
It's a shmup by it was one of the Toaplan shmups. But I just love that I saw it listed as Slap Fight MD, which made me laugh.
That means it's doctor slap fight.
Yeah,
It's a medical doctor.
medical doctor slap fight.
Dr. Slap fight. His assistant, Mr. Koshiro.
But yeah, I mean, what a prolific career to be, kind of the ease guy, and then just the Sega guy, and then just kind of the like DS and 3DS RPG guy, because he did other RPGs on those systems. He did Persona Q.
Yep.
He did, like I said, all the Seventh Dragon games. He did the Project X Zone games. I think he just worked on those. I don't think he did like the whole thing.
I think he did some of the arrangements on there.
Yeah, but it's nuts. Let's talk legacy for Yuzo Koshiro.
Yeah, so he did break some stigmas in Japan by being one of the first game composers to list his real name in the credits instead of a pen name.
Mm-hmm.
Because back then everybody was listing pen names. Miyamoto was still going as Miyahan, I think, in games. So this was still an era where it was unlikely to be credited in a game, and then he's putting his real name in there.
Right.
Also, one thing I read is that the soundtrack to Streets of Rage 3 utilized a then new composition method that he called the automated composing system that created randomized techno beats. And he had said it was partially him just wanting to see what the technology could create on its own without a composer, and partially him wanting to be a little lazy as he composed it. And at the time, it received some mixed to negative reactions as far as the reviews of the music in the game. People said it wasn't that great, but in retrospect, it's often referred to as ahead of its time and really good. And while it can't exactly be traced back to him, that same method of computer randomized composition became popularized by the trance music genre. And a ton of trance and techno music since then uses that same kind of automated composing, just letting the computer make the beats.
Right.
So I don't know if we can say he invented it or it is all because of him, but he was certainly ahead of the curve when it came to that.
Right. I don't even know if I want to say an influence on trance music, because I doubt a lot of trance musicians were like, oh, Yuzo Koshiro, obviously.
It's just a bunch of trance musicians like, well, did you play Streets of Rage 3?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all EDM is just Streets of Rage 3. It's basically where we are in life.
Basically, it all came back to Streets of Rage 3.
But yeah, extremely prolific individual with one hell of a career that is basically fully available on Spotify.
It's true.
In its entirety.
Because Sega puts a bunch of their stuff up there. Falcom puts all their stuff up there. All the Etrian Odyssey stuff is up there.
Yep. A bunch of his stuff is also put out by Brave Wave, which is a production company that does video game soundtracks, and they've worked with a bunch of artists. And he's got, I know they've got the Streets of Rage games there. I know they got Revenge of Shinobi there. I see lots of Sega stuff there. So he's still out there. He's still making new games. He's still putting all of his work out there and hanging out on YouTube. I mean, surprisingly active for someone that has been in the industry for this many years.
And also, if you just go check his YouTube channel, one, he'll put original compositions on there sometimes. Yeah, where you can just hear new music of his. And two, he'll just talk to the like a vlog sometimes. And it's pretty interesting. It's sometimes amusing, and it's worth checking out.
Yeah. Does he there's some series that, what is it called, that whenever you look him up on Spotify, it's a bunch of that. It's this one, Wangan Midnight Maximum Tune.
Huh.
And I've listened to a bunch of it. I can't figure out what it is. I think I believe it's a racing game, because I know it's based on a manga, and the manga it's a racing manga. Yes, it is a racing game.
Yes,
but apparently that was
Namco put out.
That was also a lot of trance and trance style music.
Huh.
So potentially he was more influential in that space than maybe
possibly
we are able to be aware of with our limited musical vocabulary. But yeah, I see the Wangan. I don't know how to pronounce it. I say Wangan, Hank Hill style. Wangan Midnight Maximum Tune.
Well, I look like I know what a Wangan is.
But yeah, I see that one on Spotify a bunch, and it's I think it's one of those franchises that is probably much bigger in Japan, and we would probably know about it if we were Japanese and talking about Yuzo Koshiro, but we aren't, and we don't.
But it is nice that you can just search his name in pretty much any music application and find a ton of tracks.
Oh yeah, I mean, even like other massive composers in the video game space, like I'd say he's probably the most available, well-known video game composer out there, at least Japanese video game composer out there, because it's available. You don't have to go download weird CD rips from the late 90s or whatever. You can just watch him on YouTube talking about composing Streets of Rage. You're like, oh, okay.
I don't know why when you said he's the most available video game composer out there, I for some reason really wanted to say, take that, Tommy Tallarico.
I kind of wish Tommy Tallarico was a little bit less available. if he could
just tone it down a little bit, Tommy.
He could just, man, wear some regular pants and just back up a little bit from the camera.
Just a little. Take off your shades. You're inside now.
It's a little much, buddy. It's just calm it down. Oh, the Amico's going to be such a train wreck, man. It's going to be so bad.
I hear they're finally taking pre-orders for it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's Yuzo Koshiro. And apparently Tommy Tallarico.
Just a little taste of that in there.
Because no one can talk about video game composition without bringing up the
composer of Earthworm Jim.
Like Tommy Tallarico. Oh, he won't let you forget it. I didn't know who Tommy Tallarico was until I saw him on Mega 64 videos.
Oh.
And then I just thought he was a guy that did videos with Mega 64 for like the longest time.
I saw him on that show on G4 where he insisted on telling everybody about his background every time he was on screen.
He composed Earthworm Jim.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Tommy Tallarico. He's composed so much.
This reminds me of when I was composing Earthworm Jim for Interplay. It was on Super Nintendo and Genesis.
Well, you know what won't remind you of when Tommy Tallarico was composing Earthworm Jim? It's our Patreon.
That's the best segue you've done yet. I just want to say for the record, all the segues you've done, that's the top.
Which is available at patreon.com/Retro Warriors to get yours today. Black Friday special or whatever.
Actually, this episode is going to be posted the day after Yuzo Koshiro's birthday.
Oh, well, there you go. Happy birthday yesterday, Bob Barker and Yuzo Koshiro.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Anyway, you but the Patreon. You go to our Patreon. You can get uncut versions of this show. You can get Talking Wizards. You can get After Hours. It's fun time. We would also appreciate it if you saw fit to rate and review us on whatever. I don't know. Stuff.
Whatever.
iTunes. Like how excited but non-committal I am.
Just upload it to Spotify and then review it there. I don't care.
Please don't re-upload our show. People out there, please quit re-uploading our show. Stop it. All you little shitty podcast feeds that keep re-uploading us, stop it. I'll give you the MP3. Just ask me for the damn thing and I'll send it to you. I mean, shit. Anyway, we do want to thank the following patrons for supporting us at Patreon, starting with The New Craft
and Retro Video Game Zone Jason,
Mr. Jiggyfly,
Blackened,
Pogs are back,
Fry Skungen,
Saturn is secretly Skizzleman,
Retro Game Club Podcast,
Austin Wheeler,
and Dr. Jason Tharp
are all the people we want to thank for supporting the show and all the things that they do for us. We'd also like it if you hung out in our Discord. There's a link in the show description, and you can come talk to us about stuff.
Tommy Tallarico.
If you want. Tommy Tallarico, you don't talk to us. Now I really just hope someone joins and pretends to be Tommy Tallarico and just constantly tells me about Earthworm Jim.
Yeah. And the Amico.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.